Done. Singing voice, prepping my singing voice. Okay, so it's about Barbarian's furious, mad rage driving you to great deeds, guts, glory, and really a hankering for animals. A hankering for animals. It's all about the Barbarian today. So we are going to talk about the Barbarian. I've been planning and promising to do the Barbarian for such a long time, and now we're finally here. I have prepared a fair amount of information. By all means, start putting your comments, your questions into the chat box, and I will answer those questions near the end of the presentation. I want to try to keep this fairly simple as best I can. I don't want to get too complicated. The Barbarian is one of those classes which I have to say I've always been very impressed by, so I'm actually glad I'm finally getting a chance to actually cover it. So let's get started. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and this is about how to play Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D 5e, for the Barbarian. So we're discussing the Barbarian Basics. The absolute rudimentary basics for the Barbarian. Now the Barbarian is basically a combat beast of fury that thrives in the wild. One of the classes that I always found incredibly difficult to manage at my table as a dungeon master, and frightening as a class, simply because you really don't need feats for this particular class. It's one of those classes that is all-encompassing. You don't really need anything else with it. You just use that particular class and you can go right all the way through and you'll be fine. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. So if you turn to page 46 of the Player's Handbook, you'll find details on the Barbarian class. And it gives you sort of a rough breakdown, description, how they work, their primal instinct, and their life of danger. You know, how to create a Barbarian. So I want to cover just the absolute basics, the rudimentaries to start off with. All the stuff that you really, you know, it's pretty clear because it's written in the book. And I want to do that fairly quickly. And the reason being, well, honestly, there isn't any other way to do it. Cover it real basically, and then I want to give you all of the really important information about how you should go about building a Barbarian so that you're not fighting the class, because it can be very difficult to build a Barbarian if you're trying to use some of the other assumptions that a lot of the other classes have, because Barbarian, as I said, is one of those things that's essentially fine as it is. It doesn't really need anything else. So progresses from level 1 to 20. You get your proficiency bonus like any other class. You'll also have a whole bunch of different features, but the key thing is the fact that you really don't need armor. You're going to use rage, and there's a variety of different abilities or features in the class that focus on rage and building it up, making it more powerful, making you better at sensing danger, all those sorts of things. It's also one of the classes that has the most hit points, because you get a hit dice, which is the big D12. You don't get any sort of small, no D6s, no D8s or 10s or anything. It's the big D12, and it's the only class that gets the D12. So you get a lot of hit points. It's one of these classes where armor is really not important because you have so many hit points. And the columns that I've provided you with here shows you your rage. So at level 1, you're going to get 2 rages, and it also indicates there's another column for rage damage, because when you're raging, you also do additional damage, which is really, really cool, but there are other features as well. You get pretty much all of the armor proficiency apart from heavy armor. You can use shields, light armor, medium armor, no heavy armor, and in fact, using heavy armor with a Barbarian it's almost defeating the purpose, because lots of the abilities don't work properly when you do so. You get all of the weapon proficiencies, no tool proficiencies, and often people pick up the background Outlander because that gives you, basically you get to pick up the key skills that are most important for your Barbarian, and that'll be athletics and survival, and then of course you can play around and pick a few other skills, and the skills on offer are animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, survival, all things that sort of relate to what you would expect from a barbarian and somebody who thrives in the wild. So here we go. There are a few things that we need to discuss in terms of what is the best way to actually create this class without making a mess of it. And I would say right now, the first thing, and it's really obvious, it's in the book, it says the barbarian's highest score should be strength, followed by constitution. So your strength score should be the highest one, followed by constitution, because constitution is going to help you with your hit points, and strength, really, you need the strength because that's what rage actually is linked to. Okay, don't try and build yourself a dex-based barbarian and try to truck out damage that way. It's not going to work. Finesse weapons really aren't useful to a barbarian. You need to be sticking to things that are up close, melee, close quarter combat. Use that strength. Now, you can wear armor, and you can decide, I'm not going to worry so much about unarmored defense, which you get at level 1, and I'm going to wear some armor. Now, but if you wear armor, make sure that you give yourself at least some sort of dex bonus, but that should be the third ability score that you increase. Make sure your strength is the highest you can get it, constitution after that, and then dex after that, if you're going to wear armor. And if you're going to wear any kind of armor, try to go for the breastplate, because it's probably the best armor you can wear and get the best result from it. In terms of how you actually calculate your armor class for the barbarian, it's 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier. So that's why it's really important to make sure your constitution is high. So it's not just 10 plus your dexterity modifier when it comes to unarmored defense. Okay, unarmored defense is based on 2 ability modifiers, not just 1, which is why it is so useful to you. And it will become stronger and more useful the higher your barbarian goes up, because the chances are you'll be increasing your strength to a certain point, then your constitution, which means that your armor class will increase, and you can also carry a shield if you wanted to as well. If you are tending towards wanting to intimidate your opponents, the NPCs, the monsters, then make your third score, your third ability score, charisma. Make that the next one that's highest. Strength, constitution, and then charisma. And if you start doing that, you're probably going to need to steer away from worrying about wearing armor and just go for unarmored defense to begin with. You have plenty of hit points anyway. The barbarian is a tank, and unlike other classes which are concerned with trying to avoid being hit, you don't really need to worry about that at all because of the number of hit points. All you're worried about is unleashing your anger and dishing out brutal pain to anybody who's stupid enough to stand in front of you. We'll get to feral instinct. I'll certainly discuss that. Now, the other thing I find is, what is the story with the barbarian? When I said that the barbarian is a beast in combat, it's very close to kill up close, and if you take specific races, you can capitalize on this. Dwarves make really good barbarians, but the half-orc is probably one of the best options just because of the half-orc race features. The ability to keep standing up, the ability to increase the amount of damage you do on a critical. All those things just make the barbarian, and a half-orc barbarian in particular, really, really awesome. That doesn't mean you can't use other races, but certainly if you want to capitalize on using your race, dwarves and half-orcs are a good choice. And I haven't seen a half-orc barbarian who isn't like a crazy combination of class and race features all combined to make really an impressive, not just an impressive combat machine, but also an impressive class to play. They can stand up to quite a lot. If you build your barbarian around strength, constitution, and dexterity, remember, make sure you are increasing your strength score first when you get the opportunity, then your constitution, then your dexterity. And I would at least go, if you're gonna use dexterity and build that in, then make sure you at least got a +1, not like a 0, +1 or +2. It might be a bit difficult, particularly because you're already trying to push up and make your strength and constitution high, and then if you've got a third ability score that also needs to be reasonably high, then you're going to have to sort of sacrifice something in intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So just something to bear in mind. Rage for the Barbarian gives you increased strength, so things like your strength checks, your strength saving throws are all going to be improved when you rage. Your damage resistance is going to kick in here, and look, honestly, rage is one of the things you don't want to mess with, so don't go wearing heavy armor because rage doesn't work like that. They're also very weak, the Barbarian, although very, very strong close up and able to take a lot of damage. They're very weak when it comes to dealing with magic and long range battles. So make sure you have a long range weapon with you so that you can actually hit something. Even if the score for your longbow isn't very good, it doesn't matter. At least you'll be able to at least engage in some sort of battle rather than trying to throw a javelin or try to get up close, because if it starts getting into the air and you're on the ground, you're sort of stuck doing nothing. So my suggestion is at least make sure you have some sort of ranged weapon. Even if you can't do that at level 1 and it happens later on, that's fine. The next thing is, if you're going to multi-class your Barbarian, it's really not a smart idea to multi-class into a spell-casting class, simply because of the rage feature. If you start to rage, and this is the key aspect of this class, then casting spells is just not doable. That doesn't mean that you can't multi-class into something like, say, a Barbarian Paladin and use the smites, because as long as you're only using those spell slots for smiting, you're not actually casting a spell. So if you're trying to maximize and do a lot more damage, you can do it that way. Absolutely don't go do anything stupid like take a feat like heavy armor proficiency. It's not a good idea. In fact, most of the feats are really of no use to you whatsoever if you're a Barbarian, because of the features that they have. And the other thing is, I wouldn't actually try to worry too much about your armor class. It's really the least important aspect. It's more important that you have hit points and you rage at the right time. You rage at the right time, you get that damage resistance. So those are the basic key features of the Barbarian. Now, Carson has just asked about Feral Instinct. What specifically did you want to know about Feral Instinct? Because I was going to do another video about it. The thing about Feral Instinct is you're going to get advantage on your initiative check. So when you make an initiative roll, you're going to get advantage just because of that particular feature. And additionally, if you are surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, which makes perfect sense, okay, you can actually act during the first round. So it essentially means that you can't be surprised. So you wouldn't go and take a feat like Alert if you're going to be a Barbarian, particularly if you're going up to 7th level. It would be an absolute waste of a feat, and it's utterly useless to you, which is why I wouldn't bother with it. Feral Instinct is pretty impressive. It's certainly better than some of the other options that are available to you. I mean, given that Alert will give you a +5 to your initiative, it's fine. I realise that's a big bonus, but I don't think you need it. Not when you have advantage and you get to act, provided you go into a rage at the beginning of your turn. As long as you go into a rage during a battle that might have surprise involved, you're going to be all sweet, so I wouldn't worry about it. And what's that, Carson? I just want to know a little about it. Yep, so I'm going to go through all of the nitty-gritty about Feral Instinct in the future. Probably not so much in this video. I wanted this to just be sort of the introduction. But don't you worry, Carson, we're going to get to Feral Instinct. But what I want to do is I want to pull all the information from sage advice and all of my players who have been playing Barbarians and any kind of experiences I've had with it. I want to pull all that information into specific videos rather than try to do it in one huge block video. It's just too much information all at once. But yeah, Feral Instinct just sort of makes Alert sort of a waste of time, as I said. So look, if you found this video or presentation helpful or informative, please share and like the video. If you want to support my channel, then subscribing to my channel if you're not already subscribed is certainly the first step. And hitting the bell button will notify you when I go live and when I publish a new video. Really helpful. And I go live quite a lot, and all of these Barbarian videos are probably going to be live. Not that you necessarily have to be around when they're live, it's unimportant. If you want to support my channel, watch more of my videos. There's going to be more of them. I've got truckloads of stuff on the classes and other things, basic rules, things like that. Things for players, things for dungeon masters. I don't do Patreon, but down in the description you'll find affiliate links. You can buy stuff online, you know the deal. You buy something online, I get a small commission, you pay exactly the same price, and you don't even have to buy the thing that it's linked to, which is kind of cool. And look, if you have any questions, the chat box right now, start typing in your questions and I'll answer those questions. Otherwise, if you're not part of the live stream, just put them down in the comments. Any feedback you have, anything you disagree with, remember I'm not necessarily an absolute expert in the Barbarian. I just want to cover things so it's crystal clear how you should sort of start out. Alright, here we go. And till next time, where's my 20? Till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Alright, what do we got here? So Carson, we're going to get back to Feral Instinct in the future, but I want to cover it in far more detail rather than just a short video. And I also want to bring in a bit of information that deals with everything you would need to know with regard to Feral Instinct. All the questions that people have generally asked in the past that have already been answered by Jeremy Crawford. So we will come back to it. Alright, Tommy, half-orc Barbarian sounds like fun. Yes, they are. They're super fun. I've always liked half-orcs. And it all sort of fits together, you know. If you were able to play an orc Barbarian, that would be even, I would say that's pretty cool too. But that's really dependent on your dungeon master allowing something like an orc to be played at your table. So I'm not going to go anywhere near that, but half-orcs make really good Barbarians. And they would be super fun. Okay, so Carson, what class would you pair with Barbarian as a multi-class? Well, honestly, I think you've got to consider there's one thing that the Barbarian does really well, and that's close-up fighting. So I would stick with something that's either a fighter and pick up something, take a few levels in that. With the fighter, that means you're going to get second wind. You take enough levels, you're going to pick up your action surge. Now, action surge and a Barbarian is a frightening combination. So those are all good ideas in terms of, you know, fighter, absolutely, and the paladin. And I know it sounds like, well, what do you mean the paladin? You make a paladin, yes, and it's a Barbarian, but you don't wear heavy armor because you don't need it. You start with Barbarian, you go into your paladin, and you're picking that up to get your ability to smite. So you take enough levels so you can start smiting. That's really the only reason to do it. And on top of that, the lay on hands is quite nice because now if you do get down, which certainly I haven't seen too many Barbarians go down, it's very hard to do. If they do go down, you know, you can probably heal yourself a few hit points before you go down. And with the damage resistance that you get from rage, it's very hard to take hit points off a Barbarian, and they have so many as it is. So paladins, fighters, really good combination with a Barbarian. But, you know, if you don't want to multi-class a Barbarian, you don't really need to. They're pretty impressive. Alright, Tommy, what's that? Thanks for the show. I'm glad you can make it, Tommy. Alright, Carson, what have we got here? How often do you see Barbarians in the game you play? Well, when I started out, it was the very first class at my table, and we had about 5 or 6 people at the table, and he was always in the front, and I think I downed him once, and I had to unleash. I think I threw an encounter at them that was significantly more dangerous than they should have been facing if I was being, you know, trying to be nice. I wasn't trying to be nice. I was actually trying to see if I could take him down, because he was just he was pulverizing everything. Nowadays, I don't see the Barbarian quite so much, and I think that's more because there are a lot of different options that are coming out, and people they still like the Barbarian, but they want to try all the new archetypes that are related to their classes. So, you know, you get the Hex Blades coming out, you get different types of monks, you get different types of wizards, all that sort of stuff. Everybody's trying new stuff at my table. Xanathar's Guide to Everything is just being utilized to the max right now. So nowadays I don't see a lot of that sort of thing, but the ones that I have seen that have played at my table, they've done really well. They survival of the fittest. Look, there's only one other class that I fear the most as a dungeon master, and that is a cleric. And the worst thing after that is definitely 2 clerics, because you just can't do nothing. But a barbarian in a group makes a huge difference. Okay, right, what else is there? Carson, are barbarians in your top 3 favourite classes? You know, I'm the sort of person who likes to play monk, wizard, and then if I play anything else, it's going to be a spellcaster, and that would be sorcerer. And it's mostly because the only reason I pick up the monk is because of the martial arts I used to do in the past. I like up close fighting with fists and knees and stuff like that, and headbutts. Okay, and the other classes that I like spellcasting mainly because it pushes me. It's much harder to do. A barbarian is a simpler class, even though it's going to take me like 15 or 16 videos to go through everything, and I won't even be able to do everything in the different paths anyway. It's still going to take that many videos to cover all the nuances of that particular class. It would probably be in my top 4. It wouldn't be in the top 3, but that's only because I'm biased towards spellcasting. And out of all the classes, it's such an impressive class when it's up close. Yeah, it's much easier to take down the other classes. Barbarians that just seem to live forever. Okay, Josh, how's it going, Josh? I like the multi-class of a barbarian with a spellcasting class. Yeah, I've seen it happen, but look, if you want to do it that way, that's cool. It's all right. It's just that you're fighting the class. You know, barbarian, it's rage. You can't cast spells. Yeah? If you're able to cast spells, you just can't cast them, and you can't concentrate your rage. So you either rage or you cast spells. That's the problem I find with trying to mix class barbarian and spellcaster. I'm sure it can be done. Just whether it's going to be that effective compared to just a straight out barbarian, I do not know. That's just my feedback. But that doesn't mean, remember, I'm not the expert. It doesn't mean you can't try it out. I have seen it done at the table, but it does sort of create a few problems for that player. I've seen that happen a couple of times. Okay, so I don't think there's too many other. Oh, here we go. What's that, Carson? How would you combat a barbarian that keeps beating your monsters easily? Well, truthfully, the only way to do that is to throw something at them that is significantly harder for the party, so increase the challenge rating to the point where it's deadly. Or if you start dishing out damage that's from spells at range, and you can find something to create a block between the barbarian so he can't punch through, you have to find some way of blocking the barbarian. Otherwise, he just punches through, gets the spellcaster, and it's all over. Or a flying spellcaster. There's not an awful lot that a barbarian can do about a flying spellcaster. They can't really be effective at range. They can't get up close. They can't mitigate the damage that's being dished out. And most of their damage resistance is unrelated to things like fire, ice, stuff like that. Unless you go the way of the path of the totem warrior, then things are going to be a little bit different. Then you get different types of resistances later on. But yeah, that's probably a flying spellcaster, or just really just pushing to the deadly encounters. It's the only way to really challenge a barbarian. The only hassle is you could wind up making a mess of the rest of the party, even if the barbarian's still standing. Okay, what else have we got here? Josh, yeah, there is that big hole, but in the campaign I'm in, it seems to work in certain situations. Yeah, it will be very situational, and it can work, but it's very situational. And if you can make it work, that's great. All the best to you. And if you've managed to do it successfully, you're doing really well. Honestly, it's very hard to make a spellcaster who's a barbarian and be effective. Alright, I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. I will be back tomorrow and we're going to talk about rage. And I'm going to work my way, so if you're wondering what the order of these videos is, the order of the videos is I am just going to work my way through all the different class features for the barbarian from level 1 all the way up to 20. So we will eventually get to everything that you want to be discussed, and we'll do it in detail, not just a short video that doesn't cover all the things you need. Okay? Alright, I'm going to say good night, and I'll get going and wash some dishes. And you guys, don't rage out too hard. I'll see you later.